And we're rolling.
Hey everybody, July 5th today, and thank you for being here again. Let me introduce you to Raul de la Rosa and Belle Star. One more show, and it's going to be a very important show today. Belle and Raul are going to be talking about something that happened last week in one of the richest hotels in San Francisco. Repressed Media was there in the afternoon, and we have a lot of information that is going to be very interesting. Should we also introduce our James here?
Yeah, he's holding the camera so you won't see him, but James, who we know as CIA James, is
These aren't the
OCAM leader.
droids you're looking for.
Gotta turn my robot down.
Yeah, right. We are not the droids you are
Turn your
looking for.
robot down.
Yeah.
So last week on Wednesday, we went to this meeting, this organization, ASTM International. We're having their annually or whatever, many times a year they meet, subcommittees. And this was one of the committees of this organization. And I understand, Raul, you have some information about what they are saying to us about ASTM International. And Belgium will also say something about the editorial we have of what they're not saying to the public. And of course, who are these executive members of the board? Because it's very important that everybody that is listening to this uh, go and do your own research. We need to know who these people are because they are the ones that are ruling the world, and we cannot just be sitting there just looking what's happened. You people need to be more informed, and that's we exist. Repressed media with you, Raul and Belle Star.
Fantastic. This is some information the ASTM is telling us. ASTM International, formerly known as the American Society for Testing and Materials, ASTM, is a globally recognized leader in the development and delivery of international voluntary consensus standards. Today, some 12,000 ASTM standards are used around the world to improve product quality, enhance safety, facilitate market access and trade, and build consumer confidence. ASTM's leadership in international standards development is driven by the contributions of its members, more than 30,000 of the world's top technical experts and business professionals representing 135 countries. Working in an open and transparent process and using ASTM's advanced electronic infrastructure, ASTM members deliver the test methods, specifications, guides, and practices that support industries and governments worldwide.
There's so much to say. Where to begin? It was an incredible meeting. It was the one that was the final session, and where they had all the reports, but everything was done like this section is known as D0 or DO. I'm not sure which, but I'm pretty sure it's D0 because they're so logical, let's say, that it's the D section, 0 being the executive committee, and then all the other ones under it, as you'll, if you ever hear the tape that we did. Oh, that's the whole thing. They're transparent enough that in their bylaws they say no taping. Repressed Media was there, and we taped. I told them I was going to tape. I taped. They were dumbfounded, and we have a wonderful understanding of what's going on there because we got into a lot of trouble a while ago by going after nonprofits because nonprofits are supposed to be really cool. Good, everybody likes them. They're doing something good. We found they took a lot of money from suspicious sources. And now we find that this nonprofit, established in 1898, that doesn't allow anybody to record it, is considered a respected body. But the conflict of interest makes this not-for-profit standards body incapable of unbiased regulatory suggestions. For instance, we were talking about BP being on the executive committee as the head of the executive committee. Enhanced safety was one of the things you heard Raul talk about. And if you recall, in the past 20 years, BP has sort of violated all regulations every chance they can. So writing them doesn't make any difference. They just write them and don't follow them. Do I need to go through the Texas City blow up, the Valdez and the Alaskan Gulf that destroyed native lands? How about the Gulf of Mexico? Who knows what's coming next? Anyway, these are the people that came up with the standards that even BP, that's head of these standards committee, didn't follow. So, given this uh, unbiased regulatory suggestions, on June 28, 2012, the ASTM International, formerly known as the American Society for Testing of Materials, had their petroleum products and lubricants report. These reports often become international laws. However, these reports come and are approved by a body that includes, as I just said, BP of America, ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips, members of the government, Department of Agriculture, etc., as we found in our investigations. This indicates big oil and government are probably using private, nonprofit corporations or organizations to legitimize and control the standards by those that don't even follow them, but manage to stifle any plant-based fuels or plant-based fuels in favor of petroleum. That's why we can only add 5% plant oil to diesel, even though we met a man there by the name of Claude from Pop Diesel who can run 100% plant vegetable oil. Vegetable oil is totally renewable. Oil takes quite a long time if you want to play the semantic game that it's renewable. We'll talk eons over that one rather than seasons. So we have a renewable resource which is being regulated into non-competition with the petroleum industry. So 5%, that's all you can run. Oh, but we taped them. They had a full court press this time from the bio people and the people who care about the earth and ecology, and they're thinking about marine engines being able to run 10%. Wow, 10% plant oil. Well, we repressed media were there to expose these secret meetings supposedly open to the public, but with restrictions that no one can record them. Their bylaws call for the expulsion of any member recording these sessions, which contain the final reports. ASTM International said in a statement, the purpose of the antitrust laws is to preserve economic competition in the marketplace by prohibiting, among other things, unreasonable restraint of trade. In ASTM activities, it is important to recognize that participants often represent competitive interests. Antitrust laws require that all competition be open and unrestricted. When repressed media arrived, we were required not only to sign in, but our information was collected separately for the executive committee on pieces of white paper, one for each one of us. They knew that something was not as they had planned with the visitors. At the beginning of the meeting, I stood up and announced that I was a member of the public and was taping the meeting. Carol Harvey then stood up and said she was from the press and was recording. I cited the California law. The executive committee was silent, as was the auditorium. After a slight hesitation, all continued, often remarking throughout the meeting that recording wasn't really allowed. But this was a major win for repressed media and for the public.
Bell,
Um,
if I might interject, I did catch 45 minutes to an hour of that on film when I arrived after your statement that recording was already in process. So I did capture when I got there everything else on film. And that is on Occupy SF TV on YouTube.
Thank you, James.
James, I would like you to repeat that.
On Occupy SF TV has the last 45 minutes approximately to an hour of the ASTM meeting. So that was also not only audio recorded, but it was video recorded.
Mhm. And also, if you go to repressedmedia.com, you will find a link to see that. I was about to ask Bell or Raul to describe what we saw over there when we arrived, but the information that you have, I think, is not need to do that because they will see it. And Raul, I also understand that you have some information on some of the executive, especially this guy Randy Jennings. Uh, who is this guy? And maybe you can, Bell and you, Raul, can talk a little bit about what happened when government it works with this so powerful organization, so powerful that BP is there, ExxonMobil is there. So tell us a little bit about of this executive committee, of this committee.
The part, this part that says Bell on it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Um, I should say that I went to the meeting, and so far as the 5% diesel fuel standard, I didn't hear any information on that. The way they spoke to the group was they labeled all of their things, subcommittee this, that, and the other thing, and each standard had basically a code that the guys talking about it knew what they meant, and I didn't. So I have no information on the 5%. There was one fellow for the marine fuels said 20%. I think they were talking about a test for some sort of test on the 20% marine fuel, rather than a standard of it being 20%. So anyway, let's take a look at the executive committee of this so powerful organization. Randy F. Jennings, executive assistant in the Regulatory Services Division of the Tennessee Department of Agriculture, Nashville, Tennessee, serves on the ASTM International Board of Directors since 2010 and is the chairman of the committee DO2 on petroleum products and lubricants. That's the meeting we went to, the DO2, which was standards on petroleum products and lubricants. They obviously have other groups on other subjects. Which is the committee that meets at the Hilton, and Repressed Media was present. Currently, he is second vice chair of ASTM Committee DO2 on petroleum products and lubricants and vice chair of the DO2 Executive Subcommittee. He is active in several DO2 subcommittees, including DO2.AO on gasoline and oxygenated fuels, DO2.EO on burner diesel, non-aviation gas, turbine, and marine fuels, DO2.HO on liquefied petroleum gas, DO2.02 on hydrocarbon measurement for custody transfer, and DO2.08 on volatility. LPG gas is that stuff you see in the bubbles. It's kept under high pressure at a low temperature. Um, Very light gasoline. That's what that was. I could go on to describe all of these. I used to be a refinery operator. Uh, Randy F. Jennings also serves as the chair of the National Conference on Weights and Measures, where he is also co-chair of the Premium Diesel Working Group, a member of the conference's Fuels and Lubricants Subcommittee, and a past chair on the Petroleum Subcommittee. He is a past president and current member of the Southern Conference on Weights and Measures Executive Committee and a member of the Committee on Measurement Quality of the American Petroleum Institute. And I have the website for it here, of the American Petroleum Institute. Tennessee's government website presents Mr. Jennings as Fuels Program Policy and Technical Administrator. Yes, you hear it correctly. Mr. Randy Jennings is also part of the staff of the state of Tennessee government.
Well, thanks, Raul. I'm sorry for the misinformation on the 10%. It was 20% for marine fuels, but I think the rest of the content was correct. At least I hope it was. In that committee, you will find James Simic, PhD from BP America, and he is a member of the ASTM International and Committee DO2. I wonder what DO1 is. Since 1995, Simnick is the first vice chairman of the committee and has been section vice chairman of subcommittee DO2.A blah 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 on gasoline and gasoline oxygenate blends since 2001. Wow, 2001. That's over 10 years now. So James there, Simnick, has recognized his contributions over the years with an award of appreciation and 2 awards of excellence. He currently serves a term on the ASTM Standing Committee on Technical Committee Operations, COTCO they call it. I want to break in here for just a moment and remind everyone that we've talked about these nonprofits as being a tool of the globalists to create reports that justify the direction they want to go in. So when we have these awards of appreciation, this is a way of the revolving door being used in a different manner to give awards to your friends in the industry that's regulating you in such a way that there's no regulation. And they all sound like they're doing this for good reasons and that there's no money involved, that they're nonprofit, and you know there's money because they stayed at the Hilton downtown next to Union Square. It was like that's not cheap. They look at you funny just when you walk in if you don't have some silver and gold on.
Exactly.
So we'll continue with that. Simnick has more than 33 years experience in downstream refining and fuels technology. His career began with Amoco Corp, now BP America. Now, Amoco means American Oil Company, and now BP America. So, you know, the British Petroleum and American Oil Company merged in BP. In 1979 as an engineer and received his current title in 2002. At BP, he specialized in fuel specifications and performance, as well as alternative fuels.
Bell, can I stop you there for a second? What is the problem when the last part that you just said? He specializes in fuel specifications and performance as well as alternative fuels. Do we trust BP working on this? Do
Well,
we
we know that's
trust
a
the government working with BP?
it's a classic conflict of interest because the petroleum industry, if they went to pure vegetable oil, would all of a sudden have to start shorting the oil industry and getting into agriculture and going long in corn and soy and other plants that are used for biofuels. So, of course, and then to have them in with the government, with agriculture, means that whoever is doing the growing is probably being repressed from growing enough to cover biofuels.
That may sound like some kind of leap of judgment, but especially if you take into account when this uh, association formed in the late 1800s, it was fast on the heels of the National Academy of Sciences, which when they formed, their purpose was to develop and use cutting edge science to advance our country at war over other countries.
And we also had the AMA around the same time, which made sure that no natural healing or homeopathic means were at all available to any of us, nor were they taught. They were run out of the medical business in favor of oil-based pharmaceuticals.
Absolutely. They eradicated other methods of healing out of the colleges in the early 1900s.
Right, and then we go to the pesticides, which are oil-based products as well. So the agricultural industry and the oil industry are extremely connected at the hip, so to say, as we used to say about teenagers. They're almost one. Perhaps we should. Is there any more to say about that, guys? Okay. Alternative fuels are obviously taking it on the nose. In addition to ASTM standards, Simnick is co-chairman of the Coordinating Research Council Performance Committee and a member of SAE, that's Standard American Engineering International, the American Chemical Society, the American Institute of Chemical Engineers, and the Fuels and Lubricants Subcommittee of the National Conference on Weights and Measures. You know, having joined a few things in my time, that's a lot of money to spend every year for memberships. You know, so I'm not sure if it's necessary to be able to put down that you're a member of all these things. It looks good on the wall, I guess, the certificates.
Exactly. And also, I would like to hear. Uh, I don't know who has. I know some of you have that information that came in May of 2011 from the Department of Energy. They sent a press release, and it's very important press release because they're giving us a lot of information. I would like you to. Raul has that information, and Bell, maybe you can make also a comment on that.
Here we go. In May of 2011, the Department of Energy sent a press release with this information. U.S. Department of Energy announces expanded partnership with industry to advance next generation automotive technologies. Bell?
Well, I'm not sure what they mean by next generation. The Department of Energy Secretary Stephen Chu today announced U.S. Drive, a cooperative partnership with industry to accelerate the development of clean, advanced, energy-efficient technologies for cars and light trucks, and the infrastructure needed to support their widespread use. This partnership is part of DOE's, Department of Energy's broad strategy to expand the availability of advanced vehicles to American families, to help protect them from future spikes in gas prices and reduce our nation's reliance on imported oil.
Okay, I have a clue what we're talking about. We're talking about smart cars, smart energy, where you're tied into a grid that monitors your activity, try to make you plan your use of the car around when prices and use are up and down. So if you got a plug-in car, you'd want to plug it in when everyone else was, cooking toast.
Well, and it's not just for vehicle efficiency and energy sustainability, which are all great words, but it brings together top technical experts, the national laboratories, the industry partners to identify critical research and development needs, develop technical targets and strategic roadmaps, and evaluate R&D progress on a broad range of advanced vehicle and energy infrastructure technologies, which translates into a lot of information gathering on you. Because how are they going to know what the usage is if they don't know what you are doing? And the smart meter stuff, I don't know. I'm from the 60s. I like to smoke a joint in my car once in a while, with the ocean out front. So that's going to become harder and harder because the snooping by smart means, whether it's in your fridge as to what you're eating, and believe me, that will come. So the people who are overweight will be taxed for eating when they shouldn't be eating, and etc. Or if somebody does a risky action, all of a sudden they'll be charged for the extra insurance value of that risky action, whatever it happens to be. That's because we're into a digital age instead of humanity age.
And it's actually pretty obvious that the use of all of this, you have to have the infrastructure and all of these standards and this and that in order to move forward with technology. It's pretty obvious that it's just another way to block us from using clean energy in the first place. The concept that we still have cars that these days that actually get burn more gas than 50 years ago is pretty solid evidence of that.
True enough, and they say the government industry partnerships like U.S. Drive can quicken the pace at which affordable, fuel-efficient vehicles reach and succeed in the commercial market. Is government's job to encourage business by these means, or is it to regulate them from being overreaching? Because this is the kind of stuff that allows them to get grants out of our tax money for exactly what? They keep saying that things have to make a profit, but this is an artificial profit for this particular group, U.S. Drive, because they're going to be doing all this infrastructure information gathering so that they can present some sort of a report. But are we supposed to be making sure that the automobile industry is commercially viable? I don't think that's part of what the American government is supposed to do. What do you think, Raul?
I think they have cars. I'm not actually looking at the report. I wish I had had more time to prepare for this. But in Japan, I think they have cars for $500 that get, I don't know, like 5,000 miles a gallon or something. They run on steam or something, or air.
There you go.
The solutions are there already to reinvent something in order to put off bringing already working solutions into America is ridiculous. We need to just put in the working solutions.
Well, and in Japan, we know, in China, they've had faster internet than we've had for years. So why are we the third world country on technology? Because they siphon off our tax dollars in the scheme saying, we don't know very much. We got to keep studying it.
Advanced countries are using fiber optics. Here we are struggling with Wi-Fi, which is 5 notches down from fiber optics.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, the full list of U.S. Drive partners includes the auto industry, United States Council for Automotive Research, LLC, the collaborative research company for Chrysler, Ford and General Motors, and Tesla Motors. Energy industry, BP Americas, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, ExxonMobil, and Shell Oil. Is that really the energy industry? Oh, it's all oil. Electric utility industry, DTE Energy, Southern California Edison, and the Electric Power Research Institute. Sounds like a bunch of fraudsters to me.
So can you, either Bell or Raul, can you talk a little bit about the conflict of interest here? I think, Bell, you have been talking with someone that knows a lot about why they don't allow people like that person that you know in Santa Cruz to go ahead with what he knows. When we see corporations, oil corporations, working for alternatives, what is the conflict of interest there?
Well, it's their pocketbook. Right now, one of the most exciting things going on in the energy world is in Italy. There's the Rossi fusion engine, and it is so exciting. They've been doing tests for about 6 or 9 months now, and they're into a second round of tests where they're testing it on a larger scale for more industrial uses. And you should just Google that. It's fabulous. The physics is there. Our own patent office is keeping us from having clean energy, from having alternative energy, from having access to the things that we need. For instance, my own research in biophotonics has shown that if we use a yellow light, and I can't remember if it's barley or one of the other basic grains, but at a certain point in its growth, you can use a yellow light, LED lights, and increase the nutritive content. This should be world-shaking news for those who are hungry. You were kind of moving forward there. What do you want to say, Ro?
Yeah, did you just bring up a nuclear fusion engine
Yes,
for a
I
car?
did. No, not for a car yet. It's gone from tabletop, which would be sort of like for a car, to where they're trying. The first ones were for household or small utility, and now they're trying to do it for buildings so that you could have a small industrial building that's run by this fusion. And as they prove the safety, they are going further with larger projects, because actually, there's no chance of meltdown. There's no radioactive product at the end. It's really wonderful. They found a catalyst, which is of course their secret process. It has something to do with nickel, I believe. But hydrogen goes in, and water comes out, which when you put through a water splitter, you get oxygen, and you can recycle the hydrogen back over so you have a very clean system that's running. It's Rossi, Rossi, fusion, and Italy, and you'll come up with it on any Google engine.
So we're processing hydrogen into oxygen through some sort of fusion reaction in order to use
Oxidation
for
action.
household energy.
An oxidation action that obviously does it, yeah.
So, okay, are we talking about oxidizing the hydrogen to make H2O?
It's You have to go on the page.
Okay.
You're asking me to do a scientific explanation of what something is secret in their process at this point, and they're doing the testing, and it is known worldwide, except here in America, because repressed media is repressed media, and that's why we have brought it up. And I'm sure there's physicists and people who have time to look at these things, but essentially it is, as you said, it's a fusion of the hydrogen molecules with a catalyst that then, through the oxidation that occurs with it, is then released as H2O, which is then capable of being split back into hydrogen and oxygen. It's not an efficient process at that point, the splitting and bringing it back, but it is a recovery process, much better than our so-called catalytic converters, or all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
in cars.
the burning of hydrogen is clean. It does result in heat and water, pretty clean exhaust. Maybe it might rust or something. This is not too much to worry about with that reaction.
Right, everything needs
The
upkeep.
control of the hydrogen in a tank so it didn't pop, and that's always smart. But that's a credible way to reduce pollutants. A lot of these electric engines that they're recommending, they claim they're emissions free. That's not true. Electromagnetic emissions are real, even though you can't see them. And they do have an effect on the environment and on the people in the car.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a lot of that that's been known, but also repressed. You're absolutely right. We used to call them vibrations, but electromagnetic vibrations of different, uh, from the different things from the cell phone to a microwave tower to everything. There's a phenomenon called resonance and dissonance. Dissonance tears us apart. Resonance causes us to really vibrate with it. So we're being constantly pulled back and forth at a subatomic level, is the way I would put it, with these forces that we're living within all the time now.
They do vibrate one. It's real.
Yeah, the old hippies were right. It's all a matter of vibes, man.
The vibes are real. This is no joke.
I know.
So, well, when we were there last week, we witnessed Repressed Media. One of the members of this, one of these subcommittees, came to somebody that it was a guest and said, kind of loud, "I told you those things are boring." And it called our attention because, Belle, you just a couple of minutes ago you said, all these scientific talking and intellectual talkings that they do. It's like sometimes, unfortunately, the regular people do not understand. The regular people will probably be boring listening to all that. But bottom line, what's happening day to day? We just read something where they were saying we are doing all this because we also want to offer something cheaper for the public, but we are going to the gas station and it's more than $4 a
Well,
gallon
it's
of
real
gas.
simple. We're in a process of change from the time period of the Middle Ages, where the priests took care of the universities, which is why you always wear black. It was an admission, or whatever you want to call it, into a church structure, and then you became a master and a doctor, in which case you had a funny hat, and when you became the doctor, you got a funny cape and that kind of stuff. And if you look at the old pictures, you'll see that. So the modern educational system is based upon the monastic universities that started long, long ago. What we have now is a transition to where religion doesn't matter. And so we have a lot of secular organizations that are now masquerading with their pointy hats of, I have a PhD, or I have this certificate of appreciation from this petroleum industry, or that, agricultural industry, or from the fracking industry, or from Monsanto, or all these people that have done great damage to our world. But we are looking at them as experts. Well, they know what's going on, even if I can't understand it. And the thing is everybody can understand it. Drop out the stuff you don't understand in the way of, like, this is Part 13, Subdivision A, Section 1A3EF. It's like, who cares at that level where it is? Give me one of these new digital things where I click on it if I'm interested. But tell me the substance, because every person can understand the substance. And if you can't, the person telling you is a fraud, doesn't know what they're talking about.
Can For the people out there that it's get like all this talking, it's so like VO2 and whatever. Can you two talk a little bit about? We have at least 5 more minutes. What happened to the regular people when corporations like BP, Chevron, ExxonMobil get together with government to control everything around us? And we are talking everything, including education. We know that sometimes Chevron is giving millions of dollars to universities to build a place to see how we're going to protect our environment. And by the way, when we went to the meeting, they call it the environmental meeting. Can you say that to the people that is right there and sometimes can be bored? Tell them, tell us something for us to find out what is behind all that.
The way I see it, we got like guys from Monsanto were found on our occupation on the farm in the East Bay. which was supposed to be for to study invasive plants being controlled by other plants and invasive insects being controlled by insects. Why Monsanto was in there? It's a fox in the chicken coop. When I was over at Bradley Manning Plaza at the occupation, I had actually designed and got the parts for a wave power generator so that we could generate electricity to charge the camp. We don't actually need to be working with fusion reactors in order to be independent from these monsters.
Or working with BP, Chevron, and Exxon Mobil to find something.
Yeah, well, they're in charge. They want to be the authorities. They want to control everything, and it's simply that things such as this is one of the places where Occupy really is a threat. If we go and just simply set up directly a power station, because waves go like this and we'll make power. It's not rocket science here. It's like this is practical. We can do this. Anybody can do this. You can put a windmill on the roof. They're installing smart meters which won't run backwards, and for the price you pay to prevent them from installing the smart meter, you could install a generator to run your household.
Well, it's even more evil than that, and evil's the only word for it. You look at the oil companies that we've been talking about today, and what they've done is commodified your body. You work for them, you're only worth so much. Their profits are worth a lot more. It's easier for them to let you die in an accident than for them to keep the accident from happening. So the entire system has these regulations that even if there's a problem, they have you commodified. It's easier to pay you off and say that you can never talk about this again for this settlement than it is to be safe. And this is the problem with commodifying people and making a corporate profit so devastating. Just like at the post office, there's no reason why a lot of things have to make a profit. They have to work right, yes, but they don't have to make a profit. That brings me back to we the people. It's our money, it's our taxes. It's not the corporations. The corporations never made any money of their own. They're not real. It has to come back to the shareholders. It has to come back to the public good. It's not for the directors of the companies. Some of it is, but not all of it.
It's kind of a voodoo society in a way. It should be evident to I recommend people educate themselves rather than accepting the authority with which they are taught in schools. You'll oftentimes find the fingers of these corporate entities dictating what children learn in school these days, including the concept of fossil fuels, which isn't necessarily true. There's a one guy making burnable fuel for your regular car, which you already have, with bacteria that are producing it in the present moment.
Well, I think you said something like about charter school. They're really bad for kids, and we're going to talk about that not next week, because next week I understand that we are gonna do some special show. We cannot say today where we are gonna be, but we're gonna be somewhere, and you're gonna be interested. And I think one of the lessons today probably is find the information for yourself. Don't just listen to what these people are telling us. They're lying to us because they want our money. They want to control us, and they want to control the world. And if we educate ourselves, things are gonna be better. So, well, thank you very much, James. Thank you. Till next week, where we're gonna be somewhere. That's what you
Be curious, Google things. Google it all, like Google oil disasters around the world.
Google Repressed Media.
Google Repressed Media.
Google Occupy SF TV.
Google the truth.
And thank you for watching. One Liberty signing out in San Francisco with Repressed Media Group. Say goodbye, everybody.